Well, hello and welcome to the Thursday, or as we like to call it around here, the Friday Eve edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Very glad you're able to spend some time with us today as we get you through the latter half of your week and into a weekend. It was a cold start out there this morning, wasn't it? It was minus 17 on my deck this morning. I saw others reporting their cars were telling them that it was a couple of degrees colder than that. So I'm not sure, and maybe if Alistair's listening, he can let us know, but I think that might have been one of the, if not the coldest morning of the year thus far, at least here on the Halifax Peninsula. It's starting to feel like one of those winters, isn't it? We had that big cold snap. Do you remember? I think it was before Christmas. It was before I went away on vacation. And the kids were out skating on the ponds, and I saw some pictures of folks out on some of the lakes in Dartmouth ice fishing. And then we had that warm-up, and then we had that big dump of snow 2 Mondays ago, and then we had another dump of snow on Monday, 20 centimeters, I think was the official number here in downtown Halifax that shut the city down for 2 days. And we're now starting to follow the track of yet another nor'easter that's working its way, or it will work its way, up the coast of eastern coast of North America and into our region. It looks like we'll have some kind of impact on Sunday. But Alistair, our meteorologist, is cautioning that things can change. The technology is a wonder when it comes to the weather these days, is it not? They're predicting, and it's not just our guys here in Halifax, right across the eastern seaboard, New York, and into Boston and Cape Cod, predicting a storm that had yet to form. And it always makes me kind of wonder how they do that. Maybe something we'll ask Alistair when he pops in on Friday. He'll give us the very latest on what we can expect for snowfall. It does look like this is going to be a late Sunday, maybe into Sunday night, maybe through to Monday morning storm. Getting kind of used to those now, aren't we? And we'll get you that latest information that we can with Alistair here on the program tomorrow. Well, it looks like the Halifax Forum is on the radar of the mayor of HRM, Andy Fillmore, yesterday releasing a statement calling for a pause on that facility's reconstruction or renovation or whatever you want to call it. Some say the cost is, well, now north of $100 million. In fact, in the release from the mayor's office last night, it said the cost of the renovation project is about $125 million. Some of you calling in yesterday thinking that that is probably closer to $130, $140, even $150 million. The mayor, by the way, will be here not only to discuss the forum, he'll be here to discuss bike lanes and Roby Street and budgets, not budgies, budgets. And, well, maybe he has a budgie, I don't know. And more. Andy Fillmore will be sitting in with me today. It's going to be a little bit different of an open hour. We're going to do the open hour at 11, as we always do, but I'm going to have a co-host today, and that will be the mayor of HRM. Andy Fillmore will be joining us for the full hour to answer some of my questions and to hopefully answer some of your questions. So make sure you stick around for the open hour at 11 o'clock with special guest HRM Mayor Andy Fillmore will be here. Well, if you were listening to the news this morning, you heard the story. The RCMP, at least in my opinion, just can't seem to get anything right with regards to the aftermath of the mass shooting, right? Learning this week that the Mounties have hung medals on 31 people and a unit, that's a unit citation, for their work during and the aftermath of the mass shooting. Now, I don't doubt for a second that there are some of the frontline officers that deserve commendations for the work they did, not only on the day of the shooting, but for the work in the aftermath, the investigations and gathering information for the Mass Casualty Commission. I don't doubt that there are some worthy of the commendations. My concern, which is a recurring concern, I think I can say, with the RCMP is that of secrecy surrounding this and other things. Now, not identifying the officers aside, I get that part, because I would imagine some of the people who were were decorated with these commendations may have some security issues, maybe undercover, maybe doing other things. And I understand that part. What I don't understand is that this was done back in May. And we never would have heard about it if it wasn't for the work of a reporter that dug into this. Dean Beebe is his name, and managed to uncover the documents. And of course, when it comes to documents and RCMP and other agencies, when you get them after you do these freedom of information requests, heavily redacted, right? So, interesting that they and to be fair to the RCMP, I don't know if this is their standard procedure that when they recognize work, gallantry, and work in the line of duty with these commendations from the commissioner and others, and these unit citations, I don't know if they always keep them behind closed doors. I would somewhat doubt that. But it's just another one of these, this growing pile of secrecy that has surrounded this event. And, we've talked to people that have been spending the last 3 years digging through this stuff and trying to expose what secrecy was behind this, and some going as far to call it a cover-up. And the RCMP were heavily criticized in the mass casualty report for some of the actions during and in the after and the wake of the mass shooting. And then now we hear this. So I know it's not in the grand scheme of things when it comes to the entire event and the process thereafter. Commendations are a small piece of the pie, but it's just the secrecy surrounding everything that is RCMP these days is very concerning, at least to me, and I'm sure it is to you that we don't know a lot of the goings on within the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And it's in this event certainly has shown several instances of secrecy and that non-transparency, I'll call it, moving forward. Still lots of reaction in the aftermath of what is being described as probably, if not one of the biggest snubs in National Football League Hall of Fame history. If you're not up to speed on it or don't follow it, Bill Belichick was the head coach of the New England Patriots for several years, won a bunch of Super Bowls with that team, responsible for bringing Tom Brady into the fold and rejuvenating players and so on and so forth. Well, they held the balloting over the weekend. I think it was on Sunday or Monday. And you have to attain a certain amount of ballots from the people that vote on Hall of Fame induction. And Bill Belichick did not achieve enough votes to get in on the first ballot. And that has drawn criticism far and wide from the likes of Tom Brady, from the likes of Jimmy Johnson, from the likes of just about every person that has played for Bill Belichick, from the owner of the New England Patriots, who may not have had the nicest relationship with his head coach. I think that's pretty well documented. But Robert Kraft saying yesterday or the day before that his perceived problems with Bill Belichick aside is probably the greatest coach to stand on the sidelines. And to get snubbed like that shows what's wrong with the way that we induct people into the Hall of Fame. And it's not just the National Football League. Major League Baseball has had problems with the inductions that it does, and I would imagine the other sports as well. Always questions asked when the NHL does their Hall of Fame inductions. I guess my thought on the whole thing is that if Bill Belichick, guys, I think he won 7 Super Bowls, if not more, and was a dominant force. The New England Patriots were a dominant force in the National Football League for 10 years. If Bill Belichick isn't a first ballot Hall of Fame coach, then who is? He has more wins, more rings, and more accolades than other coaches that are in the Hall of Fame. Don Shula. The only thing that Don Shula has that Bill Belichick doesn't is an undefeated season. Chuck Noll is in the Hall of Fame, who led the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 70s through that dominant period where they won Super Bowl after Super Bowl. But Bill Belichick should have been inducted without a question into the NFL Hall of Fame and was snubbed. I think that we need to take a look at the way that people are selected that vote on the Hall of Fame. It doesn't represent the rank and file fan. I don't think it represents the rank and file player. It's a group of people, some of them that have agendas, and baseball is the same way. And I think this exposes major problems with the way that we put people into sports halls of fame. I wonder if Bruce Rainey would have anything to say about that, who, of course, is the executive director of the Nova Scotia Sports Hall of Fame. Be an interesting discussion. Time for us to take our very first break here on the program. We've got a busy Thursday. Don't forget, coming up at 11 o'clock, we're going to do the open hour with a special guest host. Mayor Andy Fillmore will be in here for that hour to answer some of my questions and some of your questions, and I am looking forward to that. We had a bit of a discussion on this yesterday with several people, actually, and that was the latest release from the Auditor General's office that has shown some questions being raised about the healthcare system here in Nova Scotia, some of the key performance indicators, and the sort of biggest concern that I saw out of it was that the province is pushing back on some of the Auditor General's recommendations in this latest report. A conversation with Auditor General Kim Adair when we come back. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Well, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand, and as we await the arrival of the Auditor General here to discuss her latest report, it could be it is another sad day in Canada, as we just had a discussion minutes ago about the RCMP and the mass shooting here in Nova Scotia. More word now starting to filter out from northern Quebec, where a First Nation there is under lockdown. The chief of the Cree Nation of Mississauga issuing a statement now that's urging people there to stay in their homes and lock their doors. And they're saying now that police are investigating what they're calling multiple fatalities. So it looks like Canada and this First Nation in Quebec are going to be dealing with another mass casualty event. We don't know the numbers. I don't know how many people. I don't know the entire situation, but that's the very latest out of this First Nation in northern Quebec. Again, if you haven't heard, the chief of the Cree Nation of Mississauga, and I apologize for my mispronunciation of that, has issued a statement this morning urging everybody in that community to stay home, and that police are in the process of investigating what they're calling multiple fatalities. So our thoughts to those that First Nation and to the people of Quebec as this story continues to unfold. We had a discussion with a couple of people yesterday with regards to the latest offering from the Office of the Auditor General and a report looking at the healthcare system and transparency and I guess, in my words, if Nova Scotians are getting the best bang for their buck when it comes to some of the things that we've seen happen here at a provincial level, and some questions asked about this report, at least from the government, moving forward. So we're very pleased to welcome our next guest into the show today to tell us a little bit about that, and that is the Auditor General, Kim Adair. Kim, how are you?
I'm good. Good morning, Dan. Thanks for having me this morning.
Oh, my pleasure. I don't even know where to start with this one. There's a significant issue that you've uncovered with regards to. Am I right to say that maybe we're not getting the best bang for our buck with some of the investments into the healthcare system?
Okay, well, I'll just sort of explain a bit about what this report that we released earlier this week was about.
Sure.
So when the government was elected, shortly after they created what they called an Action for Health plan. And so it was like a strategic plan, and they laid out a number of key performance indicators with the acronym of KPIs.
Right.
So what this audit did is we selected a group of those KPIs. There was 13 of them. We looked at them in detail. We like they were a cross section of the healthcare system, like how the province is doing in terms of recruiting new professionals, like physicians and nurses and continuing care assistants. And we also looked at some that had to do with access to care, whether it was the family practitioners or the long-term care homes, that sort of thing. And we dug right down into, pulled the data, redid the calculation. How did our calculation compare to that's being public reported, and how did it all come together? So that was the exercise. And I guess the overall conclusion, we definitely commend the province for having KPIs, because not every province has this. And it was an initiative to improve transparency and accountability and to allow Nova Scotians to assess whether the system was improving over time. So that's all good. But then the results of our work and the detailed testing, the overall conclusion, I would say, is you need to exercise caution when you're interpreting the numbers. And so then the report goes on to explain why we say that, and then we made 12 recommendations that if they are implemented, it will improve the KPIs going forward.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm taxing my memory here, but we've been through several audits in your office and the work that it does over the years, and the normal routine for the government is that they review it and they accept the recommendations. That didn't happen this time. The government kind of pushing back on some of your recommendations. Right.
Yes, so we do have quite an extensive, we call it a vetting process once we have a draft report. And in this case, as with all of our reports, it did happen. The first draft was around August of last year that went to the Department of Health and Wellness. Since that time, we had many meetings, many exchanges, many iterations of sort of refining the report. And wording of the recommendations, like we work hard to get agreement on the recommendations so that they're reasonable and practical, and based on what we've seen after having completed our work, we feel that where we end up, they are reasonable and doable. But unfortunately, in this case, and it is rare to have 3 of 12 recommendations where the department indicates they disagree. I mean, the positive thing is we did get agreement on 9.
Right.
That's good. But the 3 they disagreed. Like one in particular was the one that's receiving a lot of attention because it's the Need a Family Practice Registry. Mm-hmm. So people who are looking for a family doctor or family practice. What we pointed out in the report is that there was a major change in how they were calculating that KPI in 2024. And they really changed the methodology, but they never announced that they changed the methodology. And the numbers went down considerably because of this change. So it made the KPI suddenly look much better, but it was because they changed how they were doing it. It wasn't like an apples to apples calculation. I don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yep.
So that was one of the important recommendations, that they showed detailed, not just that practice registry. What it had to do with is people that were in process. They call them pending, to be matched up with the clinic. That was the biggest group that was pulled off of the number. And so our recommendation is, okay, report the people on the registry, report the people that are in process so that people get the full picture. Mm-hmm. But it was interesting on Monday of this week in the afternoon, and this is positive, that the Minister of Health did announce that they are going to do improved reporting going forward. So that's essentially what we recommended, but in our report they disagreed. So it's a bit confusing, but at the end of the day, there is going to be improved reporting around all of this stuff.
Which I guess is what you would like
Right.
to see anyway, right?
Exactly. That's our overall objective for improvements. It was just a little bumpy, and I hope not too confusing for Nova Scotians. But we continue to work away, and we are an independent office, and we have to make sure that when we table a report and make our recommendations, they're firmly supported by the results of our work. And that's what I think is important for everyone to know, that we are an independent office, and sometimes we do have disagreements, and it's a situation where you agree to disagree.
Happens on this show quite frequently, actually. Anyway,
Yeah.
Kim, it's very interesting, and I didn't know that there was discussions that went back and forth with the auditee, I guess we can call it, when you put these reports. I thought you just put it together and handed it to them, and they said yay or nay, but that's not the case.
No, and that's a very important part of our process. We call it the validation process, to make sure we got it right, to make sure, did we miss something big? And then there's always fine-tuning of the wording, like if they don't like the tone. And we consider all of the comments. And in this case in particular, we had many exchanges, many hours of meetings leading up to the release of the report. So I feel confident that it's a solid report, great recommendations. I really hope that regardless of what the position of the department was when we released it, that they will all be implemented.
Kim, your office is busy. What's in the pipeline? What can we expect next?
Well, we have another one coming up called, Alternative Procurement and Management of Selected Health Contracts. So that's where we took a group of big health contracts and looked at them in detail as to how they were procured, and also whether the contract management is being done. Mm-hmm. We have a follow-up report coming soon that we do each and every year.
Right.
And then I'll mention on our website, it lists all the projects. I don't have them all on the top of my head, but there's a number of them in store to come out this year.
Keep up the great work, Kim.
Okay, thank you very much.
That is the province's Auditor General, Kim Adair, the roundabout way. And I mentioned this yesterday when we were talking about the city's budget, that politics kind of flows with the way that the wind's blowing. And the Auditors General put out reports, and then as I just learned today, they have conversations in the background with the stakeholders, and they go back and forth, and then the report comes out. And this time around, they didn't like some of the recommendations from the Auditor General, and with regards particularly with the need a family doctor registry number list. And but then the report comes out, and suddenly the government kind of yields. Interesting, isn't it? Time for another break on the program. We're going to get an update on the very latest in the news as we move forward. And on the other side of it, a new chunk of land has been protected near one of our jewel parks here in Nova Scotia by a new organization. We'll tell you who the NSWWT is and what they do when we return. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ulstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back. The Nova Scotia Working Woodlands Trust, or the NSWWT, has completed a purchase of 500 acres of what's being called ecologically sensitive forest in Pleasant River, which is in Queens County. And the organization says it will strengthen habitat connectivity for species at risk while advancing the province's largest private woodland carbon offset program. And we're very happy to welcome to the show today to tell us a little bit more about this, the Executive Director of Medway Community Forest Co-operative and the Nova Scotia Working Woodlands Trust. And that is Mary Jane Rodger. Mary Jane, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How about you?
That's a mouthful of titles that you have.
Yeah, I have a busy schedule.
I imagine. I guess this is my first experience with the Woodland Trust. Can you maybe give us the Coles notes on what it is and what it does?
Of course. So we're a little bit different than a traditional land trust in that we work to preserve working forests. So a traditional land trust like the Nature Conservancy of Canada or the Nova Scotia Nature Trust, they're really dedicated to protecting high conservation value spaces as kind of forever wild. Whereas we work with landowners specifically who have a special legacy of responsible forest management, and we work with them to preserve their woodlots while allowing them to still maintain some level of forestry activity.
Protecting working forests is an interesting definition. How does what does one protect a working forest from?
So primarily, our easements don't allow any sort of clear cutting or exploitive practices,
right,
as well as limiting any sort of subdivision on the property.
Tell me a little bit about this 500 acres. Why is this an important piece of property?
Yeah, so this property, we obtained funding. We worked in partnership with the Mersey Tobiatic Research Institute, which is another local organization here in North Queens. And we received funding through Parks Canada. So being very close to Ketchimakujik National Park, we are in kind of a special zone of this network of the park, nature reserves, the Tobiatic Wilderness area, where a lot of species at risk and wildlife exist. So this Parks Canada funding was really, made available to organizations who wanted to improve what's called habitat connectivity or wildlife connectivity, so that wildlife have protected spaces to travel through as they, inhabit their natural ranges down here in Southwest Nova.
As I understand, this parcel of land has several decades ago went through an intensive harvesting program.
It did. So it was clear cut in the early 90s. So it's definitely regenerating from that cut. But it is in a really important location. So it actually borders a couple private woodlots. It borders a nature reserve. It has a significant river frontage on the Pleasant River, which is, as the name alludes to, a very nice river.
Right.
and we think that just by adopting some of the practices that we promote at the Working Woodlands Trust, we'll be able to really steward this forest to make sure that, also removing it from these cycles of industrial logging, will also be able to restore it and improve things like carbon sequestration and resiliency to climate change.
Other organizations, some of them that you identified earlier in the program, when they protect the land, it becomes public access. Is that the same case here, or is this, because this is a working forest, is this not public access land?
No, we're very invested in continuing to allow public access on the property. So there is a road network that's used by the ATV community, and we are also hoping to develop a trail network within the property and maybe even some backcountry style campground facilities that folks could utilize. So recreation is a top priority for us.
And speaking for the fishing community, access to the Pleasant River, maybe?
Yes, definitely. We've discussed maybe some of those campsites would be paddle in, and then of course, there is great fishing up there in the Pleasant River. Though I'm sure some people wouldn't want the radio to know.
Shh, we won't tell anybody, I promise.
Yeah.
Mary Jane, you're going to use this forest as well as kind of a demonstration plot for people to get a look at different forestry practices.
Yes, exactly. We're partnering with the Forever Forest Network, which is a network of 13 other woodlot owner organizations that are piloting research that showcases ecological forestry on private land. So we've heard a lot recently about the implementation of ecological forestry on Crown lands, but there hasn't been, one dedicated initiative to implement those types of practices on private land. So we're working with them to pilot certain harvest prescriptions that diversify the species, promote different age classes, promote different wildlife habitat, integrate what we call beneficial or best management practices. And then what we'll do is we'll have, specific examples of these different treatments that will then be able to bring other woodlot owners to the property or members of the public to showcase what they look like. So maybe those folks that are a little hesitant to have machinery or any type of forestry equipment on their woodlot could kind of see what a more sustainable or responsible forestry operation looks like.
Mary Jane, the Nova Scotia Working Woodlands Trust, a relatively new organization. You've set a lofty goal of protecting about 4,000 acres by the spring. Are you going to attain that goal?
Yeah, well, this property certainly helps. So most of that goal is the properties that we are going to be holding under easement. So those are the properties that we don't actually own ourselves. They're owned by other landowners who enter an easement with us that's then filed through the Nova Scotia Community Easements Act, which is the responsibility of the Department of Natural Resources. So far, we have about 2,400 acres of woodlands signed up. So not in one single property. That's across about 11 different properties. So landowners who they haven't yet signed an easement, but they've signed a letter of intent with us that they really want to see kind of this long-term vision and some sort of legal mechanism that they'll know, once they pass, that their woodland will continue to be responsibly managed. So along with this property purchase, that brings us to about 2,900 acres. So we do believe that goal is in sight for this year.
Mary Jane, appreciate the time today and keep us in the loop, particularly if those campsites open.
Yeah, will do. Thanks so much for having me.
That is Mary Jane Rodger. She is the Executive Director of the Medway Community Forest Cooperative and the Executive Director of the Nova Scotia Working Woodlands Trust. When we come back, I'm going to get the opportunity to interview somebody that I wanted to interview for several years now after watching him on MasterChef Canada. And now Chef Andy Hay is teaming up with UNICEF for a gala here in HRM that is going to feed a lot of people and hopefully raise a lot of money. A conversation from Andy's East Coast Kitchen with Chef Andy Hay and the co-chair of Chefs for UNICEF Gala. That's Colleen Robbins. They'll both be in studio when we come back, and they're going to make you hungry, I promise. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Back in minutes. So put this into your mind, right? You're looking for something to do once we get into April, and you're a foodie like I am, and you're thinking, man, wouldn't it be nice to get to go to somewhere where we could do some good and we could eat some really good food? Well, we got that solution for you here, and my studio is full of people involved with it today, and that makes me very happy. UNICEF Canada unveiling the 12 top Nova Scotia chefs and restaurants who are donating their creativity, their passion for their communities and signature dishes, which makes me smile, to the 34th annual Chefs for UNICEF Gala, which will take place on the 21st of April after we hopefully get through all of this winter stuff at the Halifax Convention Center. It's designed to support UNICEF and its life-saving and its life-changing humanitarian aid for kids around the world, and is known as Nova Scotia's premier culinary event. And if that doesn't make you hungry, we can list some of the chefs that are going to be here that will. But as I said in the preamble, I've been looking forward to having a conversation with one of the people that's in the studio with me for some time. And we watched him on MasterChef, and now Andy's East Coast Kitchen, and is going to be the MC for this gala. And that is Chef Andy. Hey, Chef, how are you?
Good morning. How we doing?
Oh, well, it's this is kind of making me excited. I don't know if you can tell.
Yeah, I can. It's coming through. I'm excited too. This is my first time being involved, so I can't wait for this event. It's going to be incredible. And
also in the studio today to tell us a little bit more about what this event is designed to do and where the money goes is the co-chair for Chefs UNICEF and Gala, and that's Colleen Robbins. Colleen, welcome.
Hi, Dan. Great to be here.
I guess let's start with you. This is a fundraiser, correct? And an important fundraiser. And it's been around for a long time.
It is. This is a 34th annual event, and we have 600 business leaders, philanthropists, and chefs, most importantly. And the community have stepped up to support UNICEF. For 70 years, actually, UNICEF has been providing, it is the world's largest humanitarian assistance for children in the world. So without Halifax, we couldn't do what we're doing.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Andy, on the more technical side of things, some of your colleagues and friends from around the region are coming together to put on a night that I'm sure people won't forget. Tell me, this is your first time with it. Tell me why you decided to get involved with it.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a huge fan of UNICEF. I made this joke the other day, but just I loved UNICEF ever since the 90s, going around trick-or-treating with the little box
the orange
around.
and white box,
yeah,
I had the same thing, yep.
An amazing organization. I think the international focus is just so interesting to me. I love traveling the world. I also think their angle of food and food security is something that obviously we see here in Atlantic Canada being a major issue, and it's an enormous issue around the world. So food, to me, is and feeding people is how I show my love. So it was a no-brainer to be involved with UNICEF, so I'm really excited to be
I would imagine
the
others wasn't an awful lot to convince them to take part.
No, exactly. I mean, this is just such a huge event. It's a premier culinary event in Halifax, and I think everyone's excited just to do what they can to help in the way that they can.
I know it's early yet, but what can we expect on the plates?
You know what? There's the premier chefs from around the city. I'm sure that it's going to be springtime, so I think you're going to see some seasonal ingredients, some of those early pea shoots coming out. But we'll see. I don't know. It's still early days, so who knows what they're going to be whipping out, but you know it's going to be good.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt it's going to be good. I think that goes without saying. Colleen, always the question when we have these big charity events and we raise all kinds of money is where does the money actually go?
So UNICEF is in 133 countries and territories around the world, and it supports children in Canada as well. So it supports safe water, healthcare, education, nutrition. It's the world leader in therapeutic, ready-to-use nutrition, as well as vaccinating more than half the world's children. So that's where the impact is globally. And now more than ever, children need assistance. There's 200 million children in the world that are impacted and will need UNICEF's assistance this year. And
one of these events, I would imagine, coupled with events all over the world, go a long way towards that.
Well, this is one of Canada's largest UNICEF event. There's another event like this in Calgary, but UNICEF in Halifax has stepped up. It's an executive team of volunteers that have been doing this for over 30 years. And we've made such an impact, and we are noticed in Canada alone for what we've done here. So the same people have stepped up as far as chefs, business leaders, the community. It's all about connection, togetherness, and making a big impact.
And obviously we're still a few months away and people are still going to want to get involved, where do business leaders and people want to take part to get information on that?
So go to chefsforunicef.ca and you can find all the information. There's sponsorship opportunities. If you want to donate items for our unique auction, we have great experiences and packages to bid on. Or you can buy tickets, bring your friends, your family, or your other partners. Every ticket sold, every donation for an auction item makes a difference.
Andy, you've been a busy fella since we saw you on television there on MasterChef.
It's been a bit of a sprint the last couple of years, but it's been a total blur. I shake my head sometimes to think how far I've come with it all.
East Coast Kitchen doing well?
It's doing great. Yeah, there's a lot of pieces to it now, so we're still creating recipes out of my home kitchen. All of them are on my website, theeastcoastkitchen.com. I did my own TV show this summer, which was unbelievable. So Andy's East Coast Kitchen Crawl coming to City TV Plus and the Food Network this spring.
So we'll get to see you again.
Yeah. So that's was really exciting. It was a dream to do a food travel show that highlights the amazing stuff we have right here in our own backyard. So I feel very lucky. And then a cookbook coming next year. So
look at that.
Just keep the train rolling.
And you got to ask you, we talk about restaurants in this economy these days a lot. And I know that you're plugged into the industry. And we're seeing some older, long-standing restaurants in HRM itself, folding up their tent and going home. How difficult is it out there?
It's tough. It's a really tough business, and I think the weather right now doesn't help for people getting out there. But it's a really tough business with labor, with food costs. It's a challenging place, and I think what does excite me and shows a bright spot in the future is just how passionate the local community is, both for eating, but then also the chefs in the kitchen. They're doing it because they love it. It's not an easy way to make a living. They're doing it because they're choosing to do it, and it's something that they love. So that gets me excited. But everyone, get out there.
Right.
If you have a restaurant you love, get out there. Don't assume it's going to be there tomorrow. They need your support now.
And despite all of that stuff, there's 12 of these chefs that are going to donate their time to put on this event to raise money for UNICEF in April, which is going through the slowest time of the year, the wintertime for chefs, right?
Yeah, exactly. So they're salt of the earth people getting out there and donating their time. I think that just relays the fact that how important UNICEF is. So I think it is. Yeah. So they're coming out to support our community. Make sure people get out there and support them. I know Dine Around is coming, which is a huge thing in Halifax right now. So I think it's 3 set courses. I know restaurants make it an amazing thing. So get out there and support your local restaurants.
You mentioned East Coast Kitchen Crawl.
Yeah.
That's coming to City TV, and you can stream it there, City TV Plus. What's the Coles notes on that? What can we expect to see in that show?
So no kitchen too big or too small. We go all over Atlantic Canada. We're all through Nova Scotia, Cape Breton, PEI, New Brunswick, as well as Newfoundland, going and meeting people, trying dishes, and just showing off how amazing this place is that we live to the rest of Canada. I think the timing is really beautiful. I think a lot of Canadians are looking at what we have, and as we all know, living out here, what we have is really special. At least for like 6 months of the year. So we had a great summer showcasing it, the amazing people, the amazing food, the food stories, the food culture that we have. And that's going to be, it's going to be on Food Network coming in the next couple of weeks.
Is there going to be any blueberry grunt or perhaps some seafood chowder in there?
Definitely seafood chowder. I made some with Renee Lavallee at the canteen. And then we ate lots of lobster. We went oyster fishing, lobster fishing, and just telling all the stories that makes this place so awesome.
I'm looking forward to seeing it, and we'll look for that on our schedules in the spring. Colleen, one more time before we run out of time here. The event is in April, but now's the time to get involved.
Absolutely. So you can buy your tickets, you can donate your time. Look, we're always looking for volunteers as well. Chefs can step up. It is actually a celebration of our food scene in Halifax, too. So we do appreciate everything they do for us as well. But come on out, have a good time.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Andy, for coming in, and thank you, Colleen, for coming into the studio today. And we'll look forward to it, and hopefully we'll see you there in April because I'm hungry already.
Thanks a lot.
We're going to stop here and take a break for the news at the top of the hour, and on the other side of it, a very special edition today of our traditional open hour. I'm going to have a guest host into the studio, and that guest host is no one but the Mayor of Halifax. That's Andy Fillmore. He's going to be here for the next 60 minutes to answer, hopefully, some of my questions and a lot of your questions as well. So if you have a question, there's lots to talk about. Holy smokes, right? We've got the budget process that's underway. Lots of concerns over Robie Street. There's concerns now about the Halifax Forum. More concerns about where we're spending our money and bike lanes and those kind of things. If you have a question for the mayor, I look forward to hearing from you. The telephone lines are now open, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. A special open hour with the mayor himself, Andy Fillmore, right after the news. All right, welcome back. It is the open hour, and we're doing things just a little different today because it is the Thursday, or as we like to call it, the Friday Eve edition of the show. And it is my first week back, and it's you always kind of want to coast into that first week. So I thought it prudent that we for this open hour on a Thursday bring in a guest host to maybe lighten some of my load on the open hour, and I can think of nobody better to be sitting in the chair across from me for the next hour to answer some of my questions, and of course some of your questions, and that is the mayor of HRM, and that's Andy Fillmore. Mayor Fillmore, welcome back to the studio.
Dan, and the same to you. Welcome back from your time away. You look rested and ready to go. And I also want to say thank you for a promotion to co-host. That's amazing.
See, there you go. So now you can add that to your business card, right?
I'm going to have to get another line added.
There you go. And I'm sure your colleagues at City Hall are jealous. Let me say that with my tongue firmly planted in my cheek. Anyway, if you have a question for Mayor Fillmore, he's here for the next 60 minutes, and he's looking forward to answering your questions. The lines are open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. I, of course, have some questions as well, and I'll begin as we start to get people lined up into the queue. Mayor Fillmore, you put out a statement last night with regards to the Halifax Forum, and it essentially says that you want to have staff study deferring the redevelopment that we've been talking about for several weeks here on the Forum. This essentially, for lack of a better term, kicking the can down the road to next year? You said in the statement that this thing was approved way back in, was it 2014 or 2017, and at like $30 million, and it's now grown to $125 million. Are we kicking the can down the road again to see those prices increase to 150 or more?
This is actually a move to stop kicking the can down the road. So, I'll start by saying I love that place, like beloved. We all love it. I used to watch the Voyageurs there in Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling. We all have a story about the Halifax Forum, but it is beyond damaged. The roof could fall in any time. It's not accessible. It's not safe. It doesn't meet code in a whole bunch of different ways, and it's exceedingly expensive to fix all those things, to the tune of about 3 times the cost of building a new 2-pad somewhere else, brand new. So with that in mind, why was it a deferral and not a let's stop this project? Because we have to remember, when we do budget in HRM, the council takes on the form. It's like Wonder Twin powers activate. We take on the form of budget committee. So when we're budget committee, we don't have the power to kill projects. We only have the power to talk about their budget.
Right.
So what I did is I made a motion to defer the forum so that when we come back to full council and we have those powers to kill projects, then I will move my motion there to find alternatives to doing that very expensive project.
Do we have to make the decision? It's a difficult decision, but do we have to make the decision to end the forum?
We do. The cost escalation has reached the absurd, and people can't afford it. We are looking at people, food bank usage is at an all-time high. The unaffordability right now in the community is tragic. People are having a hard time putting food on their table. Other orders of government are tightening their belts, doing with less. Halifax Council can be no different. And so we need to take a hard look at our capital budget and bring our ballooning debt service loads under control. And that means letting go of large overpriced projects like this. Was
this part of your vision that you talked about when you were running for mayor with regards to the property I'm looking at through the window with Canada Post? Obviously, that butts right up to the Halifax Forum. Would you your vision on the forum, would it be to demolish that property or sell it, or what would it be? What's the vision?
Yeah, certainly to bid a fond farewell to the forum that has served us well and that we love so well, leaving its heritage and memory intact, but letting go of the building and clearing the site so that we can redevelop what I will call the Yonge Street super block. So that's the block bound by Roby, Allman, Windsor, and Yonge Street, on which sits the post office and Rona and Shoppers Drug Mart and several other buildings. That's going to be home in the future to 10,000 new people. 5,000 homes can be redeveloped on that site. And we've spoken before, Dan, about 20% of those homes being affordable. And the way we get to affordable is by reducing project costs. That forum project has become a cost escalator. So shedding the ice from the project and putting that ice on lower cost land elsewhere in the peninsula is how we can bring costs down and lower the cost of housing and lower the cost of community services.
You mentioned lower cost housing, and that brings me to my second question, Mayor. We know that as part of BRT, the Rapid Transit Program, there's a proposal before City Council to widen Roby Street to have 2 active bus lanes there all the time. And some of that proposal will involve expropriating and demolishing homes that are on there. What's your thoughts on the widening of Roby Street from north to Kennard?
I acknowledge that it's very difficult to let go of the old homes that we love in our city, and we don't want to do that any more than we have to. The same goes with some of the trees that are involved in that project. I acknowledge that, and I share some of that feeling. However, we need a real 21st century transit solution, and this is going to require Roby Street to be wider to allow 2-way transit operations throughout the course of the day, not just at peak hour. And this is the way that we begin to get ourselves out of the deep hole of congestion that we're in and the deep hole of lack of productivity and impact to the economy that we're in because of that congestion. So this is an absolute must to do.
Massive price tag attached to it, though. $200 million for a half-kilometer stretch of roadway. Will the cost be justified by an improved in service, or it's a big layout of cash?
It is, but let's remember, it is a core service. Transit is an absolute core service, and I think in many residents' minds, the number one core service. So we've got to do this. It's our job to do it. It's going to improve the economy in the future. It's going to improve people getting where they need to go. It's going to improve the likelihood of people choosing to invest in our region, because right now our congestion is turning into a detractor, a repellent to investment, and we certainly don't want that. So there was one other thing in your question there that I missed. If you could remind me,
was the houses that are being
right,
torn
so the
down,
houses,
and your message to the people that are living in there now that are essentially going to be turfed and with no guarantee of getting an apartment at the same rate that they're paying now.
Right. So we're thank you for the reminder. So we're seeing the rate of affordable housing construction increase in our city right now. We're seeing more and more very positive partnerships like that of the YWCA and Clayton developments, which are building those beautiful modular townhomes over in Mount Hope in Dartmouth by the Dartmouth General Hospital. That's one example. There are many others. So when we think about a corridor like Roby Street and its ability to support new housing development once it's in its new format, its widened format, we're talking about hundreds and thousands of new units at the loss of, I can't remember the exact number. It's between 40 and 80, I think.
Well, I don't have a real number. I've heard different ones. I hear from 40 to 50 to 60 to 80.
In there somewhere, So it's at least an order of magnitude or more of homes will be created in that corridor as we go on and be served by transit, and a portion of those will be low cost. So.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. You'll be pleased to know, Mayor, that the phone lines are quite busy, and lots of questions for my co-host today. That, of course, is Mayor Andy Fillmore. He's here for the next 45 minutes to answer those questions. We're going to take our first break, and then we'll head right to the phones on the other side. You are listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. He's Mayor Fillmore, and we're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Open Hour with special guest host Mayor Andy Fillmore continues here on the program. We've got busy phone lines, folks, so if you're trying to get in, please be patient, and I will ask everyone that is on hold. We'll try to get to as many calls as we can. If you can keep your questions as short as possible, to give the mayor a chance to respond. And Mayor, I'll ask you to try and keep your answers as short as you can. I know there's context involved, but we'll try to get to as many people as we can.
I commit to that. Thanks, Dan.
There you go.
Let's hear it from as many people as we can.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. To the phones, we welcome Nicole to the show. Nicole, how are you?
I'm well, Dan. How are you?
I'm well. Your question, please.
Hi, Mayor Fillmore. I feel like you're going to get a lot of questions about the budget, so I want to set the pace by asking you a question about the conditions that actually generate the budget before we get into specific line items. And I read the HRM Auditor General's report from 2024 on business continuity, and something that was very glaring in there is that they demonstrated council's ability to govern is consistently being weakened by how information and decisions are moving through administration. It didn't show how council is also surrendering their authority and how that happens, but it's happening in two obvious and traceable ways. First, it appears that council is consistently substituting legal advice for its own judgment, and that their basic statutory responsibilities are being handed to the solicitor's office, and legal advice is meant to inform council, not replace them. And when they repeatedly substitute that judgment, they're now surrendering the authority that the public elected in them. And the Auditor General already warned that council's oversight is being reduced, but that's one way that council is participating in that reduction. Second is that residents are being pushed out of the democratic channel. So people in HRM are directed either through public messaging or through their counselor to 311 or online forms if there's issues instead of their specific counselor. But once an issue lands in administration, anything remotely challenging tends to get routed into legal. And at that point, all matters become a legal file that the public doesn't necessarily have access to. And again, that mirrors the Auditor General's findings that administrative pathways can block council's ability to function. And even earlier, by your own comment about the form, you kind of illuminated how council is jurisdictioned from a governing member of council to a subcommittee position, which creates oversight issues. But together, these behaviors create a dangerous closed loop, which is that council is deferring, administration is shielding, legal then proceduralizes everything, which means accountability completely disappears, and then residents become exhausted, priced out, or pushed into the courts just to find basic answers and remedy.
Nicole, for the sake of time, can we just quickly get to the question?
Yes. What is the cumulative annual cost of choosing to resolve governance issues through administrative and legal procedure rather than elected leadership? So the rerouting, the investigations, the ongoing report generations, legal fees, court fees, settlements, judgments, outside counsel, insurance, solicitor time. How can we find those costs in the budget? Because that, to me, is the foundation of the entire budget.
Thanks, Nicole. Mayor Fillmore.
Yeah, Nicole, thank you. I agree with much of what you said. I wish that there was a shorter line between democratic will and decision-making at City Hall, and I've said this in various public forums over my tenure as mayor so far. I believe our system of governance is inefficient, and that we could shorten those lines between the democratic will of voters and decision making. However, right now we have the system we have, so I do try to engage my colleagues from time to time on taking the perspective that we need not be hidebound to what we have now. We could actually talk about changing some of our procedures and things. Change is hard. We become familiar with processes that are familiar, but I kind of am coming with fresh eyes on all of this and would love to see a more efficient system and have the councillors taking on that, acting on behalf of the residents perhaps more than they do.
Mayor Fillmore, to Nicole's point, do you believe that that council leans too much on the lawyers and on staff for staff reports?
Well, we, as a council, do have a habit of asking for a tremendous number of staff reports. So that is very time-consuming, and it does delay decision-making. It also puts a burden on staff who are out there trying to do their job. So it becomes a distraction. Those things are all true. And it's also true that it's council's right and privilege to ask for staff reports. So we can't abridge that. Could you repeat, how did you distill the question down?
Do we lean too much on the lawyers?
Do we
and instead of making decisions at the councillor level? And you answered the staff report question.
Look, I'll speak for myself.
Sure.
I don't want to put words in anybody else's mouth. I am very comfortable making decisions quickly and taking responsibility for them. Malcolm Gladwell's book Blink was all about that. It's the one that talks about 10,000 hours of practice makes you good enough that you don't have to analyze every problem. You can react in the length of a blink. You can rely on your experience and knowledge to make decisions quickly and move on to the next challenge. I subscribe to that. I've been in this business for a very long time, city building, elected politics. I have my 10,000 hours is probably more like 100,000 hours in this business. So I feel very comfortable moving quickly. That's me. Not everybody has that comfort level, and that's why we, as a body, turn to lawyers and things sometimes.
Thanks, Nicole. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome George to the show. George, how are you?
Morning, sir. Thank you for taking my phone call. I'll try and be very brief. The costs on the form, if you decide to keep it, I would recommend that you try and get an outside opinion beside the staff, because if you remember the Halifax exhibition grounds, the staff recommended the repairs would be around $11 million, so they recommended you sell the property. Had they done that, they would have lost thousands of room rentals and tens of thousands of meals. So they got an opinion from a private developer, I think Mr. Halef, and he recommended the repairs were about $3 million, and they could be spread out over a period of number of years. They did not all be done one time. So I just recommend that you get a second opinion rather than just take the staff opinion, because I think the private developers could come up with a far better appraisal of that form than what your staff has.
Thank you very much for that point, and I hope I didn't cut you off there. My co-host friend Dan, I agree with you entirely, and in the debate yesterday at the Budget Committee, I spoke at length about the need to align with private sector partners to help lower cost, about the possibility of leveraging the tremendous value of the Forum land into building the ice sheets elsewhere on lower cost land, whether that's selling the land or whether it's renting it, which is the model that the provincial government uses on the downtown Halifax waterfront. So that creates a stable revenue line for the provincial government. We could do the same thing on the Forum site. And that's one way to reduce costs. And the other way is through these partnerships that you're talking about. If we're going to be rebuilding many of the community services that exist at the Forum, let's do that with a private partner and lower the cost even further for taxpayers. So we're going to get this super block built by collaborating with the private sector.
Thanks for the question, George. I appreciate it. You mentioned in your statement yesterday, Mayor, that and brought back the proposal that was before us years ago from the military that they were going to step up and buy that. Is that off the table now? Have we approached them? Maybe they'll do it again? I
don't think anything's off the table. I'm having conversations with a few other property owners in the area, public and private sector, that we're not ready to talk about publicly yet, because right now council still has its stake in the ground that they're the official position, and we're proceeding with the Forum. So there's very little interest in other people putting time or effort into an alternate solution until council signals that there is an opportunity to do something else. When that happens, opportunities come.
Anyone that has anybody that's involved with an ice sport in HRM will tell you that ice is very difficult to find now.
It sure is, and we talked at length as well about how my efforts here will include a way that we transition ice usage at the Forum into the new facility in a way that is continuous.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the number. Their lines are busy, obviously. So if you're trying to get through, please have patience. We're going to try to get to as many calls as we possibly can here on the program. We're going to stop right now. We're going to take a break for the news. My co-host, the mayor of HRM, Andy Fillmore, will be joining us for the next 30 minutes on the other side of it. So again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Our hour with the mayor after the news. All right, welcome back. Our half hour now with the mayor. Half hour goes pretty quick around here when Mayor Fillmore is in the studio.
It goes fast, man.
It does, and he's here to answer your questions. And I mentioned the lines are busy. They are, but keep trying if you want to get in and get your question answered. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let us go back to the phone lines, Mayor, and welcome James to the show. James, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
Your question for the mayor, please.
Yes. What is your vision, Mayor Fillmore, for HRM and, let's say, 10 years from now? So, for example, transit and traffic congestion, population level, population growth between now and then, and any significant new industries or businesses that you think might come in the next 10 years. Quick corollary, there was an interesting op-ed piece in the Herald a week ago, whatever, from some man with some kind of urban planning experience, and I know that's your profession. He had the radical idea of moving the container port to the Strait of Canso. If you care to comment on that, you don't have to, but the main question is, what's Halifax going to look like 10 years from now?
Thanks, James.
Yeah, great question, and it's nice to dream. So your points were around congestion, transit, new industries. I'll tackle those. So by 10 years, we'll have our bus rapid transit system in order, operating order. People will have a real alternative to getting into their car and sitting in rush hour traffic at the beginning and the end of the day. And I think that BRT is going to be a tremendous success. And we will also continue to grow in our suburban growth nodes. That's going to create job opportunities, places of employment in those residential clusters out in the suburban areas, so that people don't necessarily need to drive from where they live into the core or into downtown Dartmouth to get to work. They'll be able to stay in the community in which they live and be employed. So that's a change that our regional plan is trying to have. And on the new industries, the one that I've got my sights on is the growth of defense. The Prime Minister's commitment to meet the NATO spending goals of 2% of GDP and go beyond that have huge implications for Halifax. We're already seeing the changes here. It's very likely we'll win the submarine service support contract. That's going to have the same impact as the shipbuilding contract all over again. We're seeing the NATO installation in downtown Halifax. That's a huge thing for us. And our aerospace and defense sector is booming as a result. 170 companies in the metro area in aerospace and defense. So I think that's going to really drive us in the future.
Mayor Fillmore, you mentioned transit, and 10 years down the line, we talk about BRT and rapid transit and bus lanes and service. Two questions, ancillary questions. One, would that also involve 24-hour buses? Maybe not all of them, but at least the core lines. And the drivers and the union continually raising concerns about security. Would that also involve some sort of transit authority or transit police or HRP or something along those lines?
Well, let's go in order. So it's quite true that we have for example, we have hospital workers, we have defense workers, we have a number of industries that work on shift work, that work around the clock. And we have great regard for those people that do that hard work. And they have to get to work too, and not just when transit's running. So is there a transit solution for folks that are doing shift work? You mentioned core routes. I think that's a fine idea. I think as we roll out the BRT system and take our transit system into the 21st century, the next leap forward, if you will, in building our city is just that we need to listen to those voices that do need to get around and provide solutions for them.
Security. And
then on security, whether it's the creation of a new transit authority, or whether it's working with the way that our stations are lit, the present, the way that it is said that when an asset is beloved, it's well cared for. So if we create a system that is beloved, and then it will be well cared for and respected. So I think that will go a long way toward solving the feelings of safety on the system.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Thanks, James. Let's now welcome Ken to the program. Ken, how are you?
Good. Thanks, Dan. I just, it's not a question, but more of a thanks for being a mayor instead of a photo op guy like the last one we had. I'm not sure if you guys watched the news last night, but CTV did a poll for the bike lanes. And it said, do you agree, pardon me, with Halifax mayor that $85 million is too much to spend on bike lanes? Yes, it's way too much. 93%. It's a bit too much. HRM should stick to the original budget, 5%. No, it seems realistic, 2%. Obviously, the people of Halifax do not want the bus or the bike lanes there, and they're reasoning that it's going to slow down traffic. All it's doing is messing up traffic. So thank you, Mayor, for keeping their feet to the fire. The OGs are just a little too comfortable after having Ralphie there.
Thanks so much for the call there. I appreciate that perspective, and I haven't seen that CTV poll, but I'll take a look. And yes, my perspective is we are spending too much. We're making a Cadillac network when we'd be very happy with a Buick network, and that's my intention through this budget process. One of the most expensive solutions to bike lanes is the separated curb that you might see around. That's $4,700 a meter, I believe, is the cost. $4,700 per meter, whereas there are simpler solutions that range anywhere from $1,000 a meter to $300 a meter. So we can do this much better and much more cheaply.
Your response to some of the debate on Tuesday with regards to the bike lanes and some of the data that was presented, that protected bollarded bike lane on South Park Street saw, I think it was 250% increase in traffic, whereas Windsor Street only saw 17%, which doesn't have that.
So we have to build what we can afford, obviously. And when the price of the network went up, it's about 360% overall. But the provincial and federal share, their contribution did not increase. Only HRM's contribution
and
increased.
that's falling off soon, is it not?
Well, I was going to say, and our share therefore increased 1,000%. So this is this is very rich the way it's been being built. I want to be really clear. I believe in building a complete bike network as for folks that want to get around on bicycle and other wheeled means, but we have to build one that we can afford.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Thanks, Ken. I appreciate it. Now let's welcome Buddy to the program. Buddy, how are you?
Not too bad yourself.
Good. Your question for the mayor, please.
Okay, question. We'd like to know why it is that they spend $12.8 million on a bike lane across the McDonald Bridge when those bikes could have just as easily came across the ferries just as well as the buses move bikes around.
Oh, thanks for the question. I have to tell you, that goes way back to before my time. I'm not even sure. I think I was spending some time living away from Halifax when that bike lane got added. And I don't know what the usage of that is. I do believe it's quite well used and does provide an alternative for folks from getting in their car. But look, you got me on this one. I don't know anything about the history of it or the cost of it, but I can see that it's very well made and not going anywhere.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate the call. Mayor Fillmore, bike lanes. We had another round of debate. Maybe I'm speaking out of class here, but I'm going to assume that that's not the last one that we're going to have on bike lanes at council. It seems that there are two camps within the council chamber with regards to this issue, and it doesn't appear that either side is willing to kind of move off of their position on bike lanes. Is it the job of the mayor to try and I don't know, be the referee, the cheerleader in between the two of that, or is it does that have to happen organically?
Well, the role of the chair, the mayor, is important in this, and when we have two entrenched perspectives, that's hopefully you never get to that place, and I'm sorry that it got to that in Halifax. It didn't need to get there, but here we are. What I think is helpful is a conversation on the council about what each of the two sides are trying to achieve. What is the core objective? And I think when we talk about that, we would find that there's actually quite a bit of agreement. We want to move people around the city safely. We don't want to put a tremendous burden on taxpayers. Now, we may disagree. There may be disagreement on some of the finer points. But I think if we can both get to the core of what we're trying to achieve, we would find that we're all here to serve residents, and that might be a good starting place for the conversation.
How's the relationship with council? We know that y'all went and took a session last year and to try and work through some of the issues. How is your relationship with your colleagues around the council table?
I think it's good. We're starting 2026, turning a new page. We did have a year of transition, obviously. First time for having a new mayor in 12 years. Half the council was new. It was a big year for me. I had a new job for the first time in almost a decade. So there was a lot of change last year. And then, of course, the economy has turned upside down on us as well. So no surprise there was some tension in the council chamber. I've gone to great lengths to improve relationships, and I think that has worked. And I want to credit my colleagues for doing the same work as well. So I'm confident we're starting 2026 in a good way. And again, we're going to disagree on some things, but we're all there to serve the public.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Take another break. The mayor here to the top of the hour if you want to get in and get a question asked. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back in a bit. All right. Getting close to the top of the hour with my special guest host. That is Mayor Andy Fillmore. He's here to answer your questions. A couple of lines open. We're going to try to get to as many calls as we can here before we run out of time with the mayor. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Gloria to the show. Gloria, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you, Dan, for taking my call. Good morning, Your Worship.
Good morning, Mayor McCluskey.
I
Good to hear from you.
will be fast with my question.
Sure.
Andy, we know that our transit system hasn't performed well for many years. I will ask the questions and get off the line.
Sure.
I want to know how this 1/2 a kilometer at $200 million will alleviate the transit woes in Metro Halifax. I want to know what you think about the $13 million expense for the Wonders grounds with no facilities. And my third question is, we talk about staff reports and a waste of money sometimes. I would like to know why you would support a motion by Sam Austin asking for a single staircase without even checking with the fire department. So that's my question. Have a good day, Dan, and your worship. Thanks.
Appreciate it, Gloria.
Thank you, Gloria.
Roby Street.
Okay, Roby Street. That is we're talking about the pinch point near North Street, and the whole system turns on getting that sorted. So we could have a beautiful BRT system, but if it has to pass through that pinch point, like imagine the middle of an hourglass, it's not going to matter. Sadly, this is the cost. This is a core service. This is central to our economy. It's central to getting people to their jobs on time so that they can feed their families and support themselves. It's central to creating a city in which people would like to make investments, because right now our congestion is becoming a repellent, as I said. So this is a bitter pill, but it is our job. This is actually the core. If there's one pill we should be swallowing, it's the transit pill.
Mayor Fillmore, there's been some discussion about this, obviously, about having reversing lanes and stuff as a cost-saving measure. Your thoughts on that, or do we need to have and I'm going to put quotes around this, the Cadillac of bus lanes?
Yeah, it's my belief that we need to have 2 lanes full-time, 24 hours a day. The peak hour reversing is not a solution for a growing city. It's the same hourglass problem. We're creating a pinch point in a system that will flow well otherwise, and then we'll just have people waiting and backed up on the other parts of the system. So this has to be a complete circulation system that is free from impediment. And this is a very good news story. I understand and appreciate there's that difficulty we talked about with losing some homes, but this is going to, in the end, catapult Halifax into being a 21st century world capital city in a way that will benefit everybody.
$13 million on the Wanderers grounds.
So the figure is actually 3, and this is to improve the grounds, make them more attractive, so that we can have more sports teams like the Tides, perhaps more coming in the future, more community events there, have it continue to be an economic driver, a very important one in our downtown, and a venue for professional and amateur sport. So those are all real things. We're in the middle of a 2-year transition from having the site managed by managed by a private entity, the Halifax Wanderers, to a public entity, HRM. And as we take on ownership, we have to bring the facility up to the certain standards to meet our criteria, the way that we interact with our public, and that's just the cost of doing that.
I hear a lot of people say that that's a public space, and access for amateur sports and for the public is limited because of the ownership of the Wanderers.
And that's one of the big reasons to shift the management back to the public, is that we can make it a true community asset and keep that field busy all the time, whether it's music and cultural events or whether it's amateur sport or professional sport.
And the single staircase, I don't know what that issue is.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, and I would just, Gloria, as you know, it was a request for an information report so that we can make an informed decision, and that report will include information from the firefighters and best practices and building code analysis and all that kind of thing. But here's what I'm interested in understanding more about it, and I'll wait and see how I vote after I educate myself more. But we live in a time where people need to move their bodies more. We're sick. And we're overweight because we're sedentary. And if we imagine, I use the example of City Hall. City Hall's got a beautiful central staircase with big railings. It's a gorgeous thing to walk up with a stained glass window behind it. Hardly anybody takes the elevator unless they need to. They're moving their body up 2 or 3 flights of stairs every single day, and I certainly do that. If we didn't have a stair, if everybody had to go to the elevator or had to go to a little concrete tube at the one end of the building with a steel staircase in it, no one's doing that. They're taking the elevator. So this is a way to improve architecture, to bring architecture back to a place where you can have a design feature that the building is organized around that will actually make people move their bodies.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Mickey to the show. Mickey, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. How you doing?
Good. Your question, please.
Good. I got 2 quick things to say. Bike lanes. Yeah, the peninsula, it's not really geared up for bike lanes. I don't find it in a lot of spots. And I do notice that on the other side of the sidewalk, there's usually a lot of room that they can put the bike lanes on that side rather than on the street. And a stadium. Build a stadium.
Thanks, Mickey. We'll let The CFL stadium you're talking about.
Yes, and then you put the soccer team in it. I don't think they should invest and spend a bunch of money on the Wanderers ground. They should build a proper stadium.
All right, Mickey, let's let the mayor answer. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Yeah, we have a city with old, narrow streets. It's very difficult to fit everything that we want to fit in those streets, like sidewalk, parking, bike lane, and sometimes it just doesn't work. It creates havoc. One of the solutions could be to move bike lanes or build future bike lanes on secondary streets rather than the primary streets. When I ride my bike from the north end downtown, I don't use the bike lanes that are provided because they're on a busy street. I go into the smaller streets and enjoy the trees and the quiet. And wouldn't it be great if we could have folks doing that? I think there would be a lot of uptake for something like that. But we do live in an old city, and that's the reality. We have to make it work somehow. On the stadium, I'm all for a CFL stadium. It's clear it won't work on the peninsula. It's got to be somewhere off the peninsula, and I think there will be a hospitable response by the community and by the various orders of government when someone comes forward with a proposal that does not burden the taxpayer. So if there was a private sector way to do this, I think you'd see people lining up to support it.
So no city money into a stadium.
Yeah, sure. The city doesn't have any money for that. That's for certain. And it would be up to the other orders of government. But I think you'd see people getting excited about a privately funded private sector opportunity.
Do you think that we could support a CFL team here?
I'm looking around and I'm seeing the spirited support for the Tides, for the Wanderers, for the Mooseheads, for the lacrosse team. Like they're in the energy around PWHL
right.
is phenomenal. I think this is a sports town, and I think that there very well would be. And plus, if it's in the right location, it would draw a more regional audience as well, from maybe even from New Brunswick.
Speaking very quick, we're almost out of time. Speaking of right location, we heard a couple weeks ago that the casino downtown is moving to Dartmouth Crossing. What should happen with that chunk of property right by the brand new Cogswell Exchange?
It's an amazing location, right? So we built this beautiful new urban district, the Cogswell Interchange area. That casino site faces right onto it. And the casino site is the northern end of the magnificent downtown Halifax waterfront boardwalk. So the natural thing is to have that boardwalk extend up and around the casino site and take people into the new park area at Cogswell, where there's transit offerings and everything else, and will be shops and thousands of people living. So it's going to be really important that we redevelop that casino site in a way that allows that public boardwalk connection to Cogswell, and in a way that it's not entirely privatized and truncates the boardwalk. So that's why I literally woke up at 4 o'clock this morning and was thinking about this, how I want to have a meeting with the CEO of Build Nova Scotia, who's going to be running that project, so that we can make sure we have the right ground rules for the site.
Would HRM ever buy it?
I don't think that the province would ever sell it. So that's the business model of Build Nova Scotia is you hold on to the land in public ownership. It remains a public entity, but you sell development rights on it and lease the land, and you develop a long-term revenue source that's not tax, which is, by the way, what I said I want to do at the Forum site.
There you go. Mayor Fillmore, we're out of time. I appreciate yours. Sir?
Thank you. Good to be with you here as a co-host. Had a great time and look forward to the next time.
So the next time that we do this, we're going to switch chairs and you can run this part of it and I'll just sit back and answer the questions. What do you think?
I have to teach me how to use all those buttons. It's like the Starship Enterprise.
There's four of them. I think we can probably figure it out.
I was big up on you, man.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That is HRM Mayor Andy Fillmore. We're going to stop, take a break on the other side of it. It's time for our monthly visits with the veterinarian and some scary news. Is the Lone Star tick here in Nova Scotia? We're going to find out right after the update. Good afternoon, and to hour number 3 of this Thursday, or as we like to call it around here, the Friday Eve edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. Glad you're able to spend some time with us. It is now time for our monthly visit with our good friend and veterinarian over there in Bedford, and that is Dr. Jeff Goodall. Dr. Jeff, welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me on, Dan. How are you today?
I am well.
Hope everybody out there is doing good, too. It's pretty cold, but let's just keep going. I guess that's all we can do.
You sent us a note here in advance of the show, and just for a little bit of context, Dr. Jeff, I'm an outdoors person. I'm in the woods a lot, and my number one foe in the woods is those ticks. And now I understand that a new creepy crawly is emerging here with some serious consequences.
Yeah. So what made me think of for today's show was we knew in the profession that the Rocky Mountain tick was sort of spreading eastwards, and I had heard about cases in Quebec, and so it's the Rocky Mountain wood tick. It is similar in size to the black-legged tick, but looks a little different. In the end, ticks are ticks, and we've really got to be aware of the problems that are there with them or associated with them. And of course, everybody knows about Lyme disease, and this is a veterinary show, so I have to say, Lyme disease in dogs is a concern, and you can vaccinate for it, of course, and you should. Is that you should use monthly, year-round tick prevention. And people tend to focus just on Lyme, though, and all I'm talking about today or trying to help the public understand is it's not just Lyme, it's now anaplasmosis, babesiosis, which are part of what's called a 4DX test that you can get at your veterinary clinic. It's about $60 to $80, depending on the clinic. You should do it yearly. We're trying to promote it ourselves. And by promote, I don't mean to sell, I mean to find out. I'll use the example. 2 problems happened yesterday, which is why I brought up alpha-gal syndrome, which is this food allergy spread by tick bites in people, is my point. So yesterday we had a client come in, really very diligent client, very responsible, doesn't miss much. And we were just chatting away during the annual exam. And long story short, I asked, any ticks on the dog? And she said, no, I used a citronella collar. And I said, well, they're a nice idea, but they never worked for my dog, and I don't find they work for many dogs. Still seem to see ticks on the dog. And she said, oh, yeah, I still see ticks, but just not as many. And I went, okay, well, maybe it's because the tick numbers are down where you're walking your dog right now, and that doesn't mean that they're not still carrying disease. And I kind of just went on intuition and said, it's part of the annual exam for us to recommend 4DX, or basically tick disease testing. And didn't the thing turn out to be Lyme positive? And she's pretty shocked. The dog is asymptomatic, and remember that Lyme disease in dogs affects about 5, some say 10% of the dogs. Most of those dogs are affected with osteoarthritis. Some develop nephrotic syndrome, which is a fancy way of saying kidney disease. And I can't tell you how many dogs come into the clinic. And just to remind the audience, we're in Bedford, so, tick central, but ticks are right across the province. And the number of Lyme-bearing ticks seems to be 100% of all the deer ticks out there. Dogs come in for lameness, and we say, well, we should run this Lyme disease or check for Lyme disease and other tick diseases. And the client's like, sometimes they're like, are you out of your mind? Dogs, or why would I be thinking about Lyme disease? And proof of the pudding is, dogs typically test positive for Lyme. Some are obviously injured from sliding on the ice or what have you. But the dogs that test positive for Lyme, we put them on antibiotics, and they're walking normally within a day. That's the proof, right? That's Occam's razor, that scientific term for one thing follows another. And in that case, we've proven ourselves right. Coming back to what's going on, and the point of the opening is now this Rocky Mountain tick is in the area. I knew it was in Quebec. Now we know it's here. The person who's affected is a close friend of one of our staff, and tested positive after being ill for, I think, 3-4 months. And the symptoms are, sorry, did I say Rocky Mountain tick? I meant Lone Star tick. I apologize for the audience. It's the Lone Star tick in our area now that's moving in. And the symptoms, just for everybody out there, it's intense allergy. Well, some say mild, but I'll say anywhere on the spectrum of symptoms of allergic-like things. So anaphylaxis can happen, which is sudden swelling of the face, mouth. You can't breathe. Your airway gets blocked. Swelling and numbness in the fingers and toes. Typically, the symptoms in my memory start like any anaphylactic reaction, anywhere from 15 minutes to 6 hours after you eat. And the alpha-gal molecule is in basically proteins. So it would be beef, pork, lamb, anything red meat. It also is known from my memory that it's in dairy products and gelatins. and you'll get hives and itching and swelling of the lips, like I said, and wheezing or shortness of breath. It can be really bad. And this guy basically had a reaction, I guess, 3 or 4 months ago. He didn't realize that he had been bitten by this Lone Star tick. Again, I apologize. It's the Lone Star tick in Quebec. That's where we thought it was. It's here now. This person has not left the province in 18 months. So he has to, and he's an outdoorsy person, just like you were saying, Dan. So I don't want to fearmonger. If you're having weird symptoms after you eat, or even several hours after you eat, no, it's not a veterinary issue, but it's a tick issue, which to me crosses over into the veterinary field. And most veterinarians know, and most clients do, but the average member of the public doesn't realize that veterinarians are more involved in human health and pet health than our human doctors are. No offense to Dr. John and all those guys. Our profession teaches herd medicine, and we have to think about everything involved. So leptospirosis is another disease that you can vaccinate your dog for, and it affects people. So, just keep all that in mind. But today, I just wanted to mention that we now have, in my opinion, and I did my research to the best of my ability with this person, hasn't left the province, has to have been bitten. The only way to get it is from the Lone Star tick. And he was diagnosed as being allergic to the alpha-gal molecule, and that is that infection reaction is carried by the bite of the Lone Star tick. And
absolutely a nightmare, Sarah. This is a nightmare scenario for me, Dr. Jeff, because number one, I don't like ticks, but number two, an allergy to red meat would seriously impact my life.
And it's impacting this guy's too. Interestingly enough, he's having to use soy protein and a few other things because he needs protein in his diet. I'm learning more about. I knew of it, but I didn't really worry about it. There's enough in our profession to think about.
Right.
But if my memory's right, I think he said he was dizzy to start. He couldn't figure out why he was dizzy after like a barbecue sometime in the mid-fall. And then the symptoms repeated themselves and became more severe. And finally, he and his doctor and an allergist put it together in the last week. So, let's be thankful for our human medical system. It worked. I know there's a lot of people who say it doesn't. It did here. It is for me with my disorder, and it is for Todd. By the way, shout out, Todd. Miss you.
Yep.
There you go. I mean, hope you're healthy too, Dan.
I'm getting over a cold, but I'll be all right. Dr. Jeff, you mentioned as part of your monologue here that there are tick prevention outside of the shots. There are tick prevention methods for our furry friends. Obviously, with this new tick being added to the mix, but we know that those black-legged ticks are everywhere. Are they effective? Is there one that's better than the other?
Well, for talking now just specifically about dogs, it really just comes down to oral or topicals. I like the Atlantic spray too. Shout out to Acadia University. I still have to come back to, for my dog, it didn't work enough. It may have worked keeping ticks away from her. Like I sprayed it on her bandana and on her belly.
Right.
So the Atlantic spray is there. Support Nova Scotia. Let's be, I have clients who swear by it, but the citronella collars, the amulets, all that stuff, I'm not trying to be anti-naturopathic. There are naturopathic remedies that are helpful to Western medicine. No doubt about it. If you have questions, talk to Dr. Kate at our practice, or Dr. I can see her face in the valley. She's awesome too. Jennifer Bishop. Shout out to Jen too. But when it comes to dogs, their only topical is Advantix. I tend to like it more. My own dogs are on it. I have a new puppy. She's on it because I just don't want the ticks getting on my dog. Now, there are orals. Good Lord, they're getting into my mind suddenly. Isn't that horrible? Spectra. One starts with Credelio. It's okay. And Bravecto and NexGard. These are orals that are basically drugs that do not affect mammals for the most part. I have to add that in there. And if the tick bites, it gets a mouthful of this drug that basically inactivates them, let's just say. And it works fast enough to prevent most, if not all, tick diseases. Switching back to the topical, Advantix is basically a mild pesticide, and people don't like that word. I don't like pesticides generally, but for people, you need to use repellents like containing DEET, pyrethrin. I know there's shirts and things and short pants that have those things impregnated in them, but people have to wear repellents anyway if you're going outside. Wear long sleeves, your pants tucked into your socks, stick to cleared paths. Check yourself after you're done. Showering soon afterwards, is that a bad idea? Just to shower the DEET off you? Well, check your dog. Be really thorough. With my last dogs, well, this dog, is a golden retriever. She'll have long hair too. You have to use a comb. I had to comb my dogs to find the ticks. What I liked about Advantix, and I used Advantix with the Advantix spray, is I would see ticks dropping off the dog coming through the garage because the stuff is just that. The ticks just hate it so much. So, I know I've read there's for people, white light colored clothing. I've seen clients where they put white or light colored jackets on their dogs. I don't think that's going to work in the summer anyway. Dogs are going to overheat. I have some clients say, well, I don't like the recommendation for people, stay on the trails. Well, clients will say, well, I just stay on my lawn or on my trails. I don't let my dog go off into the woods or long grass. I used to agree with that. Now, it's very clear that, how do I explain this? I'm just going to think for a second. The number of, if ticks are spread by birds. People think of it, they're deer's ticks. Deer are part of the life cycle, but ticks are generally spread by birds. So think of them like parachutists during the invasion of Normandy. These arachnids suck on the bird, then get a good blood meal, then they drop off the bird as the bird is flying typically. So a tick can land in your lawn. So coming back to the point of my dog only stays in short grass, if a tick lands in your lawn, a black-legged deer tick can lay up to 2,000 eggs, and they ain't going anywhere. So if a tick lands in the middle of your lawn, say you threw a flea or fleas, 100 fleas on your lawn and 100 ticks on your lawn, within a few days, the fleas will have jumped away. The ticks aren't going anywhere. They're just going to stay. I think the American dog, one of them, either the American dog tick or another one I can't think of, lay up to 8,000 baby ticks. And they mature pretty quickly. The tick life cycle is pretty fascinating. Google it under the Centers for Disease Control. And there's a lot of evidence that not only does the adult deer tick spread Lyme disease to people, but the nymph tick is about 50% as likely to spread disease to people and pets. And the nymph, when it's fully engorged, is about the width of the average person's white of their fingernail. So you're going to miss it if you're not careful. Everybody thinks and focuses on the adult tick, and I'll finish with, everybody's focusing on Lyme disease, and that's appropriate. It's a horrible disorder. But remember, there's more diseases than Lyme out there now. And now with what appears to be the Lone Star tick in our area, because this person swears they haven't left the province, wow, we got a lot to think about. Happy spring. Can't come fast enough.
Dr. Jeff, we're going to take a break. Dr. Jeff Goodall is here from the Sunnyview Animal Clinic to answer your questions. We're going to take that break, and we'll be back in minutes. All right, welcome back. This is time for our Ask the Veterinarian monthly visit with Dr. Jeff Goodall from Sunnyview Animal Care over there in Bedford. Dr. Jeff, we've had obviously some weather over the last couple of weeks that has dumped snow onto our province, and obviously some issues that are associated with that, and particularly the puppers I see walking up and down my street on sidewalks that are absolutely encrusted with salt.
Okay, so what you're talking about is cold weather ideas to make pets less susceptible. Is that where we're going?
Right, and is salt dangerous to pads of feet who are walking on it?
Right. So no, good point. And basically, I mean, most pet owners know to put a jacket on their dogs. If it's too cold for you, it's too cold for your pet. So keep in mind that salt, yes, is dangerous. Again, we have a young puppy in the house, and when I first took her to the clinic 3 weeks ago, put her down in the parking lot for a minute to pick something up, and she ingested just a single piece. I know it was a single piece of salt, and she was vomiting within 3 minutes, maybe 4. By the time I walked across the parking lot, she was vomiting. So salt is not only makes them nauseous, it is really bad for their feet, really bad just for their whole physiology. So keep in mind that you should rinse your dog's paws off. Ideally, before the season started, you would have, acclimatized your dog to wearing boots. My last dog wore boots outside in the winter, even though she was a wintry dog. She would overdo it sometimes, and we'd get, relatively pretty cold toes. So good winter boots for next year. The other thing to keep in mind is wind chill can be fatal, especially if your dog gets wet, or like the wet snow we had a few days ago. So again, you have to think about your dog. Even if you just tie them out for a minute while you're doing something, it isn't unusual for them to start shivering and shaking because they lose heat through their feet. Rinse their feet off when you get home, so you get all the salt off their feet. So in addition to a coat, boots, rinsing them off after they come in, remember that antifreeze, ethylene glycol, is very sweet tasting. Cats typically ignore it, but I'll come back to that in a second. But dogs, because it's sweet, they will search it out. If you overfilled your window washer fluid in your garage, dog's gonna lick it. And it only takes a small amount to cause some permanent and occasionally fatal damage to the kidneys. Cats, on the other hand, have a much lower toxic dose. So if you have a house cat that walks through the garage through a puddle of it, of course, they groom themselves and lick their feet. They can get a toxic dose of antifreeze pretty easily that way. The other thing is, I'm just going to touch on rabbits. I mean, although it is better we know that some rabbits reside outside. Pet rabbits reside outside. People think it's healthier. That's probably true in the spring, summer, and the fall. But in the winter, it's best to bring them indoors. It's tempting when they're kept inside to give them a break from the cold and put them outside. But remember, these animals adjust or adapt their physiology to the temperature that they're kept in mostly. So keep them indoors. It's safer anyway. Some rabbits, yes, can adapt to cold weather. Of course, we have wild rabbits where we live. But it's not a good idea for your inside rabbit to be outside at any time this time of year. So keep that in mind. Pneumonia is actually extremely common in rabbits that are brought in and out. So why put them through it, right? And that goes for pretty much, I think that's enough. I'm talking too much. There you go.
Dr. Jeff, very quickly, we're up against the break, but we've talked about boots before for dogs, and I've got emails from dog owners saying trying to put these things on my dog is next to impossible. Is there a better boot?
It is a challenge. So the short answer is how like with this current puppy, I am trying to acclimatize her to boots and what have you. There's suspender boots, which might be easier for your dog to tolerate because they're literally like a long boot as opposed to the short ones on their feet. But what you do is you get a lick mat, and they're available on Amazon. They're available at PetSmart, Wren's, all those guys. It's something that has suction cups. You put a little bit of cheese whiz. A little bit goes a long way. There's ridges in the lick mat, and that sticks the cheese whiz in there. They can't get it out very quickly. You stick that on your your dishwasher or your fridge, the dog at nose level, and then put a boot on and reward your dog with the lick mat and a treat, and then take it off, and then put it on another foot and take it off. You have to work at this. You have to plan ahead, and like a 5-minute training session, just like we're going back to obedience training. And you basically have a 5 or 10-minute training session to put the boots on and off with a lick mat to kind of distract them. They think it's a reward, of course, and they start associating, typically, the dogs start associating the putting on of the boots with the lick mat, and you're on your way. But it is a challenge. And then you have to work forward. You have to, use a unique treat to take them for a walk across the floor. So within a week, you're trying to walk them across the floor, and they look pretty entertaining. They look like those Tennessee walking horses with their feet high in the air and thumping and all that. But if you persevere, positive reinforcement, and if you've gone to a dog trainer in the past, which all dog owners should, call your trainer. Don't just listen to me. Find out what he or she has to say. There are ways to do it. And I know we're up against the hour, so I'll stop talking, but that's how you do it. You've got to get these guys used to their boots, especially as they get older. Boots can be really helpful indoors for traction, right? A lot of dogs, as they get elderly, they have problems just walking across hardwood floors. So there you go.
Dr. Jeff is here for the next 30 minutes to answer your pet-related questions. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We are back after the update. Welcome back. Dr. Jeff Goodall is here, and he is ready to answer your questions about your furry friends, your feathered friends, and others. If you have a pet-related question, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. That's the telephone number. That gets you onto the show, just like Joe did. Joe, how are you?
Hey, good afternoon, guys.
What's up? What's your question for the doctor, please?
So, my question's kind of going back to what you started with ticks. What would be the symptoms, and what's if I picked a big tick off of my cat. He's only had one. I comb him every day, but it was almost white. And I've researched that, looking at the periodic time that it was on him. It's probably about a week and a half. What would I do if he does have Lyme disease?
Okay, so you're talking about a cat, to be clear, am I right?
Yep.
Okay, so there's no evidence that Lyme disease gets into cats. Right now, there's just none. However, there is evidence of something called hemobartonellosis. It's called feline infectious anemia, so it causes anemia, fever, and jaundice. So those symptoms would be weakness, pale gums, or yellow gums, and obviously fever. And fever is really hard to ascertain in a cat, to be very straight. Cats really don't like their rectal temperatures being taken, but I'll say it for the show that the cat rectal temperature range is basically 38 degrees to 39 degrees. I think it's 38.1 to 39.1 or something, or 100.5 to 102.5 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? So there's your normal temperatures for a cat. But back to cats, there's another one called bobcat fever. It has similar symptoms. It's also known as cytoxoonosis, I believe. I saw that out west. I haven't seen it here. I mentioned babesiosis in dogs. It is known to be occurring in cats. It's a tough one to diagnose, but it has very similar symptoms. Pale gums. If the anemia for any of these diseases gets out of control, then it's respiratory issues that the clients are bringing the cats in for. It just occurred to me the cytoxoonosis cat, or bobcat fever is what we called it when I was in British Columbia. That cat came in with respiratory distress because it was so anemic, it couldn't move oxygen around its body, so the owner brought it in because it was panting. There's other ones, including ehrlichiosis. In ehrlichiosis, it's similar symptoms again. That's the problem with these tick diseases in dogs and cats, and I would think people, is there's so many symptoms, it's difficult to kind of hone down on it. But that's a really long answer to your question, because veterinary medicine can get really complicated really quickly. But again, coming back to ticks and cats, Lyme disease does not occur as of the last time I looked, and that would have been 2 or 3 months ago for the research, that there's no evidence of Lyme disease affecting cats. So there you go, brother.
Appreciate that one, question. Joe, and all the best. Dr. Jeff, it must be at least a 2-person operation to try and get a temperature out of a cat, right?
Oh, my God, yeah. I mean, Dogs are tolerant of it, but cats are cats, right?
Right.
It is a two-person operation. It's we don't do it for entertainment, but ear thermometers are useful in veterinary practice, but not always as accurate as we would like. So in the clinic, we do take oral, or AURAL, oral, which is the fancy word for ear temperatures.
Right.
But if I'm really suspicious, it's going to be rectal.
I envision that somebody trying to do that at home and it being and resulting in a bloody mess.
It is. I've been bitten and scratched, and my staff too. I'm so blessed with great staff. I have to shout out to them too. But anyway.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. You've a couple of times have talked about Lyme disease today, Dr. Jeff. If my dog comes down with it, if it's diagnosed with Lyme disease, can it be cured?
Big question. And boy, I hope it doesn't seem like we have many callers, so I can chat here. Okay, Lyme disease diagnosis in dogs. Very involved. Can you cure it? The answer appears to be very much no. What you do is basically, if your dog tests positive for the Lyme antigen, and I talk about IDEX, I know another company, I can't think of their name suddenly, has a similar quick test for the antigen. If your dog tests positive for the antigen, that means that at some point your dog has been bitten by a Lyme-bearing tick. So now what? First things first, obviously, if there's symptoms, you should consider doxycycline at 10 milligrams per kilogram once or twice a day. There's a little bit of debate on the dosing for 30 days. Some dogs get it for 60 days. While that's happening, so immediately they go on doxycycline and a pro and prebiotic to offset the effects of the antibiotics. There's good effects to the antibiotics, remember, and bad ones are loss of good bacteria. So always give your dog a probiotic when they're on antibiotics, and a prebiotic is never a bad idea. You draw blood to check. I mentioned that kidneys can be affected by Lyme disease. It's never a bad idea, as soon as you can afford it, because I know these things are not inexpensive, to run full blood chemistry, full CBC or complete red and white blood cell counts, electrolytes, and a urine sample. All that will be interpreted by your veterinarian, and he or she should send you a copy so you can do your home research using reputable sources. Remember that there's a lot of misinformation on the internet now. I'm very disappointed about it, and I'm going to relaunch my YouTube channel soon. I just, with one thing and another, it hasn't relaunched, but I will be. And you could argue that's part of the problem. But anyway, take your information. You want to do what's called a Quant C6 test. Now here's the honing down to your answer. It's the Quant C6 test that will tell you the level of activity in your dog for the level of activity for the Lyme bacteria. And so what you want to do is drive that number down. It'll be higher in the initial infectious period. You want to take a test as soon as you can, repeat it in 6 months, sometimes earlier, sometimes 45 days, to see the number coming down. Because it's the asymptomatic dogs that are the most difficult to understand what we're going to do in the future. If the kidneys test normal on the blood work and urinalysis, you're great. If there's no osteoarthritis or joint-related issues, you're great. But your dog still has Lyme disease. And there's something called superinfection, and that means your dog gets bitten again with a Lyme-bearing tick. And so what happens is the Lyme bacteria appear to, let's say, hibernate in where your tendons are as your muscles move joints. They move from the muscle tissue to a tendon tissue, and then insert into the bone. Tick bacteria appear to live on that ligament and within something called a sheath, which is like a straw that the ligament goes through. And it's basically the tick bacteria are isolated from the body's immune system. So you don't appear to be able to cure it. So if your dog gets bitten again, you should let your veterinarian know, hence the whole point of the annual tick antigen screening test, because your dog will likely always test Lyme positive. But I come back to, don't just focus on Lyme disease, focus on all the tick diseases. So annually, repeat your Lyme and tick disease tests, and annually repeat your Quant C6, especially if a tick got through your your tick preventative and maybe your Lyme vaccine isn't 100% either. And if the quantity 6 climbs, you know your dog's been bitten again. And that's how we judge in the longer term if the dog has active Lyme infections or not. And you want to beat it back down again with another run of doxycycline. There is some discussion that amoxicillin is also a useful drug. I can't remember the dose off the top of my head. I think it's 10 milligrams per kilogram 3 times a day. My point is, it's never, I don't like the word never. It does not appear to be a disease you can clear out of your dog's system. You just drive it down and keep it down with a combination of Lyme vaccination, tick prevention, either oral or topical, and annual blood screening, at least for the C6 antigen and preferably C6 and all the other tick disease antigens. Sorry, wrong answer.
Great answer there, Dr. Jeff. I'm sure most people will take their dog out to walk, and this can happen very easy, just to walking around the park, right?
We're seeing ticks on dogs just around Christmas time.
Right.
So, just because there's snow on the ground, for the listening audience, if it's at any time the air temperature goes above 4 degrees, ticks will come out. They'll come out around the base of trees where the snow sort of backs away or melts from the base of the trees. They're out and they're looking because they're hungry. And they want to have a blood meal and then go back under the leaf litter, which is what insulates them under the snow. I know right now they're not going to be any out. I recognize that. But your dog, I don't like the word to tell people what they have to do, but here I go. Your dog has to be on monthly, year-round tick prevention. And keep in mind the Advantix, I'm not anti the orals, but the Advantix lessens the level of ticks coming in your home because the ticks just typically don't even want to get on a dog with Advantix. And when you put Advantix on your dog, it lasts 21 to 25 days. The company says monthly because that's easier for people to remember. But if, like me, if you were living in an area prone to ticks on your dog, use it every 21 days and check your dog every day. And with Advantix on your dog, it's likely you're not going to have as many ticks in your home because your dog won't Trojan horse them into your home. So you don't have to worry about the Lone Star tick and all the other stuff.
Going to take another break. Dr. Jeff is here on the other side. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We are back in minutes. Welcome back. Dr. Jeff Goodall from the Sunnyview Animal Care Center is here, and he's here to answer your questions. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Tracy to the program. Tracy, how are you?
Hi. Oh, I'm great. First-time caller. Been listening for a while. I just tuned in. I heard the doctor was talking about rabbits.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to. Do you mind if I clarify a little bit? Because I'm wondering about what he was saying about like rabbits living outside. Because we're rabbit owners. My family, we've had rabbits for years, and all of our research has indicated like domestic rabbits are not really good to house outside. I mean, especially in our climate. I mean, they're not really acclimated to it. There's lots of dangers beyond ticks and so on. There's a lot of raptors in this area. I mean, if you don't have a complete enclosure for them that's covered, you're risking your furry friend being carried off. And I mean, it's just, there's so many other risks, and keeping them in a small pen, doesn't seem to be a very, great way to keep them happy and friendly either.
Yep. All right, well, that's the doctor. Appreciate the call, Tracy.
I wasn't advocating for keeping them outdoors, ma'am. What I was trying to say is we do have clients who, under influences from the internet, think it's better to keep their rabbits outside. That's not what I was saying. So I'm saying no, inside rabbits should not be kept outside, especially in the winter context at all. Then I've had clients in the room debate me and say, well, rabbits live outside. I'm like, well, those rabbits have adapted to the variations in weather and can cope with the cold. And yes, you're right. They're not domestic rabbits that we're talking about, but people don't really think that far along typically. It's the old syndrome. The less you know about something, the more certain you can be in your answers. So no, I do not believe that domestic rabbits should be housed outdoors. And if you decide you want to get your bunny fresh air, it should be in a harness, and you should be there with it, not in an outside pen. Because I agree, it's like a smorgasbord for the raptors and, heaven forbid, other creatures. We have switching gears for the clients who have lizards. Natural sunlight is important for your lizards. We used to take when we had lizards in the clinic, I've kept lizards for pets over the years. I would take them outdoors with me when I was walking the dog and walking the cat. Yes, I'm that kind of person. And the lizard was always out with supervision. Never, we did have clients who kept their lizards outside, but had a pretty secure enclosure with double layer of chicken wire and something else much stronger than chicken wire to allow the natural UV radiation from sunlight, which is imperative for the health of lizards. The UV bulbs that are important for lizard health do a good job, but not a great job. So my point was, don't let rabbits live outdoors, but you'll hear people argue that pneumonia is lessened if you keep them outdoors. It's the opposite. If you move them in and out, you're likely to get pneumonia in your pet rabbits. So I wasn't saying or advocating for keeping them outdoors. I was actually saying the opposite.
I
apologize if I misspoke.
And I appreciate the call, Tracy. Dr. Jeff, is it tough to train a lizard to heal?
Sorry, I needed a drink there. Good joke, but no. The bearded dragons is what I kept, and they're hilarious. It was very hard for me in vet school to appreciate having a lizard of any type, or even snakes. But then when I got into the profession, I decided that I should keep some of these animals. Most of them are rescues, and get to learn more about them to help clients with my, if you will, personal versus textbook opinions and experiences. And boy, they're a great pet. They're a great starting pet for kids who are responsible. Parents have to make that call. And if kids have allergies, they're a great starter pet. Do your research. They do need regular cleaning and what have you. And about the healing question, I've had clients, we don't see lizards as much as we used to, but I've had clients come in with their animals in like a leather harness. I remember an iguana, I think his name was Bear. He would walk on a harness, on a leash. So yeah, I guess you can train them. I find the bearded dragons are like greased pigs on ice. They'll go any which way they want, but they are very familiar with who takes care of them. So Albert was the one that we had for the longest time. Albert would follow me around out back in our dog run at the clinic. And you have to be very careful. Don't let another dog near the lizard. But my dogs were trained basically to ignore parrots and lizards. So my dog would be lying in the lawn, and Albert would go up and pull on her fur and all that kind of stuff. But I'm sitting right there with them. So it's a lot of fun to engage your pets. And coming back to rabbits, which is what started all this, I think, having your bunny outside with you is a great idea. We don't want these dogs, cats, rabbits, lizards just be sitting in a cage or sitting on the end of a chain. My God, I can't imagine that for a dog. My first cat, Abby, she travels with me in my truck on calls. And you can do it. You can train them. Cats are a little different creature, obviously, but you can do it.
Are you able to train a cat to walk like you would like a dog?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The only thing, I made one mistake, and the listeners will find this hilarious, but that also tells them how crazy I am. When I was working in Shaunavon, Saskatchewan, so it's a town in the southwestern part of Saskatchewan, gorgeous area, really nice people. They thought I was crazy because I was working at a clinic in Shaunavon, and I only had a cat back then, and I would take her out on the leash. And she would, not heel, but she would walk along and she'd want to smell things, and certain sounds really upset her. And I wasn't really thinking one day, these towns out west have these really, like the Valley, have these really great celebrations, like community celebrations. And I saw people kind of lining up for something, and I was like, oh, what's this? And the cat would usually sit on my shoulder while I was walking her. And some bastard hit a bass, excuse my language, sorry, hit a bass drum so hard. My cat must have flown 10 feet in the air and took off and ran right back to the house. So you got to be careful. It doesn't always work out perfectly. I know that caused a lot of entertainment for the neighborhood. So
fair enough. Dr. Jeff, I appreciate it. We're out of time. And to those of you that didn't get through on the calls, my apologies. We'll do this again next month, and have a great rest of January.
Thanks for having me on, everybody. I hope it helped. There's a lot of stuff we covered today. I'm sorry if I covered too much. Have a great day, though, everybody. Be safe. Be warm.
That is Dr. Jeff Goodall from the Sunnyview Animal Care Center in Bedford. He joins us once a month to answer your pet-related questions. That's going to about do it today for our program. My thanks to Mayor Andy Fillmore for spending an hour with us during the open hour and answering some questions. I hope that he was able to answer some of the questions that you've been asking here on the program. And as he was walking out the door, he said he wants to do it again. So we'll make that happen as soon as we can. It's the only way, really, these days that you can get face-to-face time a lot of times with some of our political leaders. And we will venture, and Vanessa's going to look at me through the window with that look, that mom look that she has. But we will venture to try and get the Premier on here before the session begins at the end of February so that he can answer some questions and we can roll forward here. It's our promise to you. My undying gratitude to Vanessa Van Inez on the other side of the glass, now that she's mad at me, that all the hard work that she does getting all these guests lined up and in here, it's not an easy task. And I appreciate all the work that she does. Thank you to all of you who dialed the phone, dialed the numbers, and joined the conversation. I truly appreciate it. Tomorrow is the fabulous Friday edition of the program. I promise we'll get you an update on what's happening with the weather, with this new nor'easter that's coming. Alistair Alders will be here. Tim Powers will be here. And we will do the open hour. Until then, everybody be well and be kind to one another.